Finding wheels that fit your car can certainly be a daunting task. While the main car in discussion for this video will be this 2024 GR Corolla, I will also be covering a lot of general details about wheels that could certainly be useful for anyone just wanting to learn more about wheels in general. And finally, this video will kind of show how OEM Evo 8, 9, and 10 wheels will look and fit on this GR Corolla. So let's jump into it. Let's start off with some quick answers and general specs. So here are the basics about the OEM GR Corolla Enkei wheels. They're 18 by 8.5 plus 30 offset. The lug pattern is 5 by 114.3, center bore of 60.1 millimeters. The brand that manufactures them is Enkei. However, if you bought a circuit edition, then you do actually have the nicer BBS version, and that's the BBS brand. And the Enkei wheels weigh about 23 pounds, while the BBS are closer to 18 pounds. Here's some more information I feel you should also really know. The wheel nut seating style is considered to be a mag/shank, and honestly, I'll probably just refer to this as a mag/flat for this video, just for simplicity's sake. The lug threads are an M12 by 1.5. The factory front wheel studs are 28 millimeters in length. The factory rear wheel studs are about 35 millimeters in length. And this car does come from the factory with some rear slip-on spacers that are 10 millimeters thick. And these lugs are supposed to be torqued to about 76 foot-pounds. I usually do about 80. If all you want to know is what Evo wheels fit, well, here are the quick answers to that. And a simple tip that 17-inch wheels can be harder to fit because of the brake caliper clearances of the inner barrels of the wheels. Now these Evo 8 Enkei style wheels with the 6 spokes, these fit, but barely. You probably want some spacers. These Evo 8/9 BBS wheels, they really do not fit without spacers. You can make them fit, but you certainly need spacers. Same story with the Evo 9 Enkeis. These do not fit as well without spacers. I'm trying to get away from spacers if I can. Now the Evo 10 Enkei wheels, these actually fit really well. This is actually my current winter setup on my GR Corolla. And just for fun, these are the Volk TE37s that came on my car when I bought it. Just want to show you what they look like on the car. If you want more details about fitment, you'll have to keep watching. Now, if all this spec breakdown I talked about in the beginning sounded like a bunch of gibberish, don't worry, we'll break it down further so you have more details about what these numbers actually mean. The first thing I want to dive deeper into is the lug nut and wheel stud section of this video. So why are these Evo wheels a potential good option for the GR Corolla? Well, it's because they share the same mag/flat wheel seating style. The wheel nut seating style refers to the part of the lug nut that makes contact to the wheel lug seat. The GR Corolla doesn't use the more traditional conical/tapered style lug nuts typically found on US market cars. But instead, they use the mag or shank style seat lug nut featuring a flat seating area. In general, this means that instead of having a more tapered contact point, it's a flat contact point. So what this means for you is that if you swap to aftermarket wheels, you will most likely also have to swap to a conical tapered style lug nut, which can also mean you might lose some thread engagement. You lose this thread engagement because the mag flat style nuts go further into the wheels than the tapered lug style typically would, which lends itself to a discussion about wheel stud length. As I mentioned earlier, the stock studs measure about 28 millimeters in the front and 35 millimeters in the rear. Again, the rear came with these OEM spacers, so that's why I believe that the rear studs are a little bit longer to accommodate these spacers. And also another real quick aside, just to give you more information, breaking down the stock stud/nut number of 12 by 1.5, the 12 is referring to kind of how big around the bolt is. So in this case, it's 12 millimeters. And the 1.5 refers to the pitch of the thread on the bolt and the nut. So the wheel stud size and thread pitch needs to match the wheel nut bolt hole size and the thread pitch of that same nut. Back to the wheel studs though, in general, if you swap to an aftermarket wheel that uses the conical or tapered style lug seat, you may want to invest in some extended wheel studs for the front and possibly even the rear, depending on if you run spacers and how wide those spacers might be. ARP is a proven brand in the industry for wheel studs, so if you are going down the extended wheel stud route, the ARP ones on the market say they're about 1 inch longer than the factory studs with an overall length of about 3 inches. Now, if you ran these extended wheel studs, you may now also need to run an open-ended lug nut. That's because with the extra length of these studs, your closed-end lug nuts now might not be able to seat all the way before you hit the cap of the nut itself. So for example, with these Evo wheels having the mag and flat style nuts and having the extended wheel studs in the front on my car, I am running the Dorman 611-168 open-ended wheel nuts, which again are 12 by 1.5 to match the studs. If you end up getting aftermarket wheels like Volk's, you probably need some sort of aftermarket tapered lug nuts that are a 12 by 1.5 pitch. At the end of the day, your lug nuts need to match your wheels, and your lug nuts need to match your wheel studs. Let's talk about Hubcentric Rings. An important thing to pay attention to when swapping to different wheels is the potential change in the wheel center bore size. As I mentioned in the beginning, the OEM GR Corolla hub is 60.1 millimeter center bore. So if you want to run any of the OEM Evo wheels I'm talking about in this video, you should buy a 67 millimeter OD to 60.1 millimeter ID hub-centric ring. These rings basically fill the gap that would exist between the wheel and the hub if you didn't have these rings. So just know the center bore size of your new wheels and compare it to the center bore size of the OEM hub of the GR Corolla and get yourself some hub-centric rings to fill the gap. And as I continue to dig deeper, I really want to talk about the general wheel specs. In this case, let's break down the OEM specs of 18 by 8.5 plus 30. The first number, 18, in this case, refers to the height diameter of the wheel. So in this case, of course, it's an 18-inch wheel that needs an 18-inch tire to accommodate it. On to the 8.5 number. The 8.5 in this example refers to the rim width. Rim width combined with offset is very important when it comes to clearance from the suspension and the fenders. If a wheel is too wide, it could potentially hit the stock strut or shock components on the inner part of the wheel. Conversely, the outer part of the wheel, if it sticks out too far because of the offset, it could hit on the fender area or just stick out really far looking goofy. Which leads us into the offset discussion, and that is our final number, the plus 30. A simple way to describe offset based on what I just talked about is, does your wheel rub more on the inside of the suspension components or more on the outside towards the fender area? Obviously, you don't want it to rub in either area, and the correct offset will provide proper clearance on both sides of the wheel. The plus 30 in this case is a positive offset, hence the plus sign. A negative offset could be something like negative 12, and of course, hence the negative sign. A generalization I'll make for this, just for simple understanding, is that a more positive offset will make the wheel run closer to your suspension, but could also provide more clearance for your fenders and your brake calipers. While a more negative offset will make your wheels stick out of your fenders more, but potentially give you more clearance for your suspension towards the inner part of the car. I tell you all this just to try to give you an idea of what you are looking at. A lot of other factors go into proper wheel fitment, and if you want to buy wheels not discussed in this video, I recommend buying from a place that can verify the wheel fitment for your car, and or search the web to see if anyone has ran the particular wheels you're looking for. Next, we'll break down the lug pattern of 5 by 114.3. The first number, 5, in this case just represents the number of lugs that hold on each wheel. Most cars today are a 5 lug. Some smaller cars can be a 4 lug. Usually the larger the vehicle, the more lugs it can have, like trucks that can run 6, 8, or 10 lugs. Hopefully you get the picture. The 114.3 is the distance in millimeters of the cross measurement from each lug to the other lug. In other words, how far apart are the lugs spread, and how big of a circle do they make? The circle thing is at least the way I like to look at it. So the smaller the number, the smaller the circle of studs would be. So 5 by 100, for example, would be a smaller circle than 5 by 114.3. It's also worth noting that the age-old battle of metric versus American measurements can come in and make things more confusing here, because 5 by 114.3 millimeters is the same as 5 by 4.5 inches. Hopefully now all that stuff I referred to as gibberish in the beginning is making total sense to you. So we'll move on to each Evo wheel test fitment that I did. Let's start with the Evo 8 Enkei wheels. I have the specs for these wheels up on screen. In general, I would probably not run these wheels without some sort of spacer. The inner wheel barrel clearance is super close to the caliper. However, if you do run a spacer, the clearance does get better towards the inside part of the Evo 8 wheel, as it does have a taper to get a bit larger. Now, it's a bit surprising, honestly, because I thought, if anything, I would need spacers to get clearance from the wheel to kind of the front side of the caliper. But again, the larger issue here is basically that these are 17-inch wheels, so the inner barrel is kind of too tight on the other side of the caliper. I wish I would have had a 10mm slip-on spacer on hand to check clearances, but I didn't have any. But I do feel like a 10mm spacer might work just fine, up front, of course. All these issues are the upfront brakes. All these wheels clear the rear brakes just fine. However, if you do want to run bolt-on spacers, a 20mm bolt-on spacer up front should probably work fine. And don't forget your 67mm OD to 60.1mm ID Hubcentric rings in the process. I have seen other GR Corolla owners run these exact Evo Enkei wheels, so perhaps someone that has run the setup could leave a comment in the comment section and confirm. Next, I tried the Evo 9 Enkei wheels and the Evo 8 BBS wheels. As a side note, I certainly learned a bit more about the Evo wheels while making this video because I thought they would all fit the same. But the inner barrel of the Evo 9 Enkei wheels and the Evo 8 BBS wheels are smaller than the inner barrel of the Evo 8 Enkei wheels. Basically, the Evo 8 Enkei wheels provide the most clearance of all the 17-inch Evo wheel options. It's honestly also part of why I'm making this video. These wheels have the exact same specs, but they fit differently. And that's because the general shape of the wheel, and in this case, the inner barrel of the wheel, is shaped differently between the wheels. So if you really love these Evo 9 Enkei wheels or these Evo 8 and 9 BBS wheels and want to run them, I'd recommend at least the 20mm spacers up front to clear the brake calipers. But even then, it might be too tight of a fit for my liking. But if anyone's done this with their car, please go ahead and let us know. And don't forget to run your Hubcentric rings again as well. Now onto the Evo 10 Enkei wheels. These again are currently my wheels of choice for winter. These Enkei wheels can be run with no spacers and the clearance works out well, again, because these are now 18-inch wheels. So if you bought these Evo 10 Enkei wheels, all you'd need are some Hubcentric rings and you'd be good to go with the rest of your stock setup. A note just for style and looks is that these Evo 10 Enkei wheels are painted more of a gray color. Typically, they'd be silver. Unfortunately, with the Evo 10 BBS wheels, I don't have those to show on camera. But I'm willing to assume that the Evo 10 BBS wheels would work just as well as the Evo 10 Enkei wheels since they're also 18-inch. But as we learned earlier, these assumptions can be dangerous because of the differences we saw in the Evo 8-9 Enkei wheels and BBS wheels. So sorry to be a little bit inconclusive on the Evo 10 BBS wheels, but again, if you're running them, please let me know. And finally, here are the specs on the Volk TE37s that were on the car when I got it. They're 18-inch by 9.5 with a plus 23 offset. They had a 73.1 center bore, and they are the reason that this car has the extended studs up front. It's also worth noting that I do have coilovers here, so I cannot confirm whether or not these TE37s would fit with your stock struts or your stock suspension. That's about it. I hope going into such detail on this video makes you see that there are a ton of options and variables when it comes to wheel fitment. But now you should know more of what to think about and what to look for if you're buying a set of new or used wheels. But I'm just a guy on YouTube who likes to document what he does, and I want to learn from you guys as well. So if you could leave comments in the comment section down below, maybe let me know what wheel specs are working good for you, and give me some details. As you can see here, we need those details. If you found this video helpful, it's obviously helpful to me if you like and subscribe and leave a comment and all that stuff. And for some reason, they say if I tell you to do it, you're more likely to do it. So here I am. But as always, this is Paul from Boosted Films saying thanks so much for watching. I just want to say that domestic violence is never okay. If you or someone you know is experiencing issues with a partner and doesn't feel safe, please visit the website thehotline.org or call 1-800-799-SAFE.